What if Ash started with Charmander in the ATR? We start off outside Professor Oak's lab as Ash runs in, meeting his childhood friends, Green and Gary. After a while, Professor Oak allows the group to come in. Here there is a change, as rather than there just being Squirtle and Bulbasaur, Charmander is added to the fray, because the trainer who originally got Charmander slept in, I don't know. Like in canon, Green picks first. She picks Bulbasaur, because it's green like herself. Gary picks second, he picks Squirtle, knowing that it would have an advantage over Ash's choice of Charmander. Green and Gary speed off, as Ash receives his first partner in Charmander. When Ash leaves the lab, he is greeted by his mum, who gives him his hat. Ash thanks her before going. He gets a strange feeling as if he's being watched. Ash walks down Route 1, where he sees a Pidgey. Having a basic understanding of how catching Pokemon works, the boy sends out his Charmander. He calls for Charmander to use Scratch, and Charmander obeys, slashing the wings of the avian. The Pidgey tries to fly off. However, due to Charmander clipping her wings, the Pidgey drops out of the air. Ash throws a Pokeball, adding Pidgey to his roster. Due to Ash not yelling here, due to Charmander being obedient, the raven-haired boy neither meets Misty, which in turn means he never meets or gets beaten up by the Spearow flock. This makes Ash's path to Viridian rather uneventful. At Viridian, Ash goes to the Pokemon Center to heal up his Pidgey. However, while at his stay, the boy meets the Team Rocket trio of Jessie, James and Meowth. They try to steal all the Pokemon. However, the young-spirited boy from Pallet wouldn't give up without a fight. Ash sends out his Charmander, while Jessie and James send out their Ekans and Koffing respectively. Ash, using Charmander, commands an Ember, which does major damage to Ekans. Koffing goes in for a Sludge, which blinds Charmander. Ash grabs Charmander, wiping its eyes with his shirt. Thanks to this, Charmander regains his vision, and is able to unleash a Scratch on Koffing. Koffing collides into Ekans. The duo of Pokemon are dazed. Meowth goes in for a Scratch, however Charmander sidesteps him before using another Scratch to send Meowth into the pile of Pokemon. Here the police come, and due to Charmander not blasting Jessie and James off, the trio get arrested. Ash then goes to the Viridian Forest, where he encounters a Weedle. Ash sends out Charmander, but the fire lizard seems a bit concerned over the bug stinger. So, without his starter willing to fight, Ash throws a Pokeball. Surprisingly, he is able to catch the small bug. Ash continues throughout the forest until a wild Pidgeotto attacks him. Ash sends out both his Charmander and Weedle. Immediately, Pidgeotto aims for Weedle, going for a dive bomb, but Charmander uses Ember at Pidgeotto as it descends, forcing the avian up. So the avian uses a gust which hurts both of Ash's Pokemon. Ash calls for an Ember, however due to how far Pidgeotto is, the attack does little to no damage. Pidgeotto continues on its onslaught, while Ash can't do anything. This leads to Ash's hat flying off his head. Weedle instinctively uses String Shot to catch the hat before giving it back to Ash. The raven-haired boy gets an idea, as he calls for Weedle to unleash a String Shot on Pidgeotto. This wraps Pidgeotto in a cage of silk, which causes the avian to fall. Ash calls for an Ember from Charmander. This burns the silk, which deals massive damage to Pidgeotto, but also frees it, leading to the bird flying away. Ash feels accomplished as he continues his way through the Viridian Forest. That is until he encounters a boy called Samurai. Samurai challenges the boy of Pallet to a battle. Ash accepts, as he sends out his Charmander to battle, and Weedle to watch. Samurai sends out his Pinsir. Ash calls for an Ember, which burns the bug. AJ calls for a Vice Grip, but Ash counters with Scratch. Charmander goes in for an Ember on the injured Pinsir, which knocks the bug out. Samurai then sends out his Metapod. Ash calls for an Ember, while Samurai calls out for a Harden. However, the Harden does nothing, as the forest dweller's last Pokemon gets knocked out. Weedle yells out excitedly for his friend. However, this causes a swarm of Beedrill to attack the group. Samurai and Ash split up as the group run away to save their lives. Most of the Beedrill go for Ash, so with his Charmander, he uses Smokescreen, which hides the boy and his Pokemon. However, the Alpha Beedrill stays, looking for the group, and is able to locate them due to Charmander's tail flame. The bug uses Poison Sting on Charmander. The lizard takes the attack full force, which poisons the reptile. However, the vicious bee isn't done, as it goes in for a fury attack. Weedle, not wanting his best friend to get hurt because of his actions, jumps into the attack, taking the force. However, this leads to the Pokemon glowing blue as it evolves into Kakuna. Beedrill, seeing this, goes in for Kakuna. Ash noticed how Kakuna and Metapod looked somewhat similar and calls for a Harden. Kakuna executes the move, so as Beedrill attacks, it barely takes any damage. Charmander goes in for a final Ember, forcing the Apex to buzz off. Ash cheers over his victory, but Charmander faints over the exhaustion and the poison it has accumulated. Ash rushes to Pewter City, with Charmander's tail flame barely burning. Ash rushes to the Pokemon Center, where he meets Nurse Joy. Ash hurries to the front desk as he gives Charmander to the nurse. Nurse Joy asks Ash if he was facing Team Rocket. This surprises the Boy of Pallet, but the nurse continues, saying that her sister in Viridian had told her about a trainer called Ash who saved the center from Team Rocket. Ash gloats about this, saying that when he enters the gym challenge, he'll be the strongest challenger of all. An old man goes up to the boy, saying that not in a million years could the boy beat Brock. This annoys Ash, who challenges the old-timer to a battle. The two go outside the Pokemon Center, getting ready for the first battle. The old-timer, who calls himself Flint, sends out a Rhyhorn, saying this is my strongest Pokemon from all my travels. Ash sends out Pidgey. Flint asks Ash if he knows Pidgey, a flying-type Pokemon, is weak to Rhyhorn, a rock-type Pokemon. Ash replies he knows, he's just proving how much stronger he is than the man and Brock. Ash takes the first attack by calling for a Gust. The attack doesn't phase the rock type. Flint laughs before calling for a Rock Throw. The attack one-shots Pidgey. Ash rushes to the Pokemon Center, handing Pidgey to Nurse Joy. Flint mocks Ash, asking how he plans to beat Brock if he can't even beat him. Ash grits his teeth. However, seeing the boy's determination, Flint tells Ash that it would be wise to catch a grass or water-type Pokemon. Hearing this advice, Ash starts running, trying to find a Pokemon that fits the description. However, after hours of looking, Ash is no closer to finding a Pokemon than before. That is until Ash feels like he's being watched. He looks at the forest, where he thinks he can make out two eyes staring at him. Ash rushes into the forest, where he sees a Tangela. Ash is about to send out Charmander, but realizes that both Charmander and Pidgey are at the Pokemon Center. With no other options, the raven-haired youth sends out his Kakuna. Kakuna goes straight in for a Poison Sting, which poisons Tangela. Tangela goes in for a bind, but Ash calls for Harden. Tangela tries to grip Kakuna, but the poison ticks in, forcing Tangela to drop the bug. Realizing it's his chance, Ash throws a Pokeball, catching the grassy gremlin. Ash rushes to the gym, where he sees Flint waiting for him. Ash is shocked and asks what the man is doing. Flint tells Ash that he wanted to see how Ash faced Brock, as Brock as a child grew up without parents, because they went on their own journeys. That's why he's as tough as a boulder. Ash gulps. Ash goes into the gym as Flint goes into the stands. Ash yells out a challenge to Brock. Brock accepts before sending out his Geodude. Ash sends out his Kakuna, who looks exhausted. Ash goes straight in for a Harden, as Brock calls for Mega Punch. The hit lands, and despite the Harden, Kakuna gets knocked out. This confuses Ash, as he knows Kakuna is stronger than that. Ash doesn't let this show, as he sends in his Tangela. However, when Tangela gets sent out, it also looks tired. And worst of all, it's poisoned. Flint scolds Ash for not going to the Pokemon Center after he caught a Pokemon. Ash decides to ignore this, calling for a Vine Whip. This does major damage to Geodude. Before Brock can respond, Ash has Tangela use another Vine Whip, which knocks out Geodude. Brock is stunned that this newbie is beating him, so he sends out his ace, Onyx. The rock snake stares down the tumble of vines, ready to squash it. However, Brock calls for a dig. Onyx, having faith in his trainer, tunnels down. Ash is confused by this, until Tangela takes some damage from the poison. Brock's trying to time him out. Ash realizes. Ash is worried, until he realizes something. Tangela's been stalking him since his first day, which meant it was able to go through all of Viridian Forest, through the smoke screen Charmander created. Ash orders Tangela to wait until right before Onyx comes out. When Onyx resurfaces, Tangela immediately bombards the snake with tons of super effective hits. This knocks the Rocky Titan out. At the same time, Tangela succumbs to its poison, getting knocked out. Ash is about to leave empty-handed, but Brock stops him. Brock tells the boy that while he might be an idiot, the bond he has with his Pokemon is undeniable. So the gym leader hands out the Boulder Badge, saying if he could tutor the boy, he would. Here Flint comes in, revealing that he's Brock's father. Brock, learning this, bombards his father with all the chores he needs to do before leaving with Ash. Ash and Brock make their way to Mount Moon after Ash gets his Pokemon from the Pokemon Center in Pewter. Ash is already lost, looking at the cave from the outside, and tells Brock as much. Here, however, Brock tells the trainer that he knows this cave like the back of his hand, showing the boy a fossil. Ash, clueless, asks Brock what it is. Brock says it's a fossil. Ash doesn't really understand, but the duo continue. As they go inside Mount Moon, they see two Team Rocket grunts trying to capture a Clefairy. Seeing this, Ash sends out Tangela, who easily knocks the two grunts out. Clefairy, while initially timid, trusts the group due to Tangela. Because of this, Clefairy starts leading the group. However, Clefairy runs into a dead end. Ash, frustrated, punches the wall, saying he thought Clefairy knew where she was going. However, after the boy says this, the wall collapses. Brock realizes that Team Rocket must have set traps to halt their progress. The group continue. Anytime they see a wall, Ash sends out Charmander to break it. The group finds themselves at a strange place where they see 3 Team Rocket grunts and what is presumably their admin working. The group plan a surprise attack, but Ash, being Ash, almost trips, compromising the mission, as they get spotted by the grunts. Each of the grunts send out a Zubat and a Rattata, as Ash and Brock send out their Charmander and Onyx. Realizing they are severely outnumbered, they always send out all of their Pokemon for this war of attrition. Immediately, Brock's Onyx is able to crush one of the grunts' Rattata. Ash's Charmander follows by taking another grunt's Rattata out. Seeing Onyx and Charmander as the biggest threats, the grunts who lost their Rattatas call for supersonics from their Zubats. Due to Onyx being a rather large mon, it connects, getting confused. Brock immediately recalls it. The second supersonic rushes towards Charmander. However, Tangela rushes in, taking the attack. Ash is confused why the attack did nothing, and also why Brock recalled his Onyx, until the gremlin made of vines starts attacking Charmander. Ash is confused, but Brock yells at him to return Tangela. Ash does so and asks why. Brock explains that Supersonic causes confusion, and because they're already using 6 Pokemon between the two of them, there is already enough confusion. This explanation proves to be a detriment, as while the group weren't focused, Charmander gets knocked out. Ash tells Pidgey to take to the air. Pidgey flies and rushes into one of the grunt Zubat. The two have an aerial back and forth. However, in the end, both Skyborns fall. As for Brock, he does well on his part, with his Geodude taking the last Rattata out of the fight. The two grunts left call for a supersonic. One of the waves hits Geodude. However, the second doesn't meet Kakuna. Brock recalls his Geodude as the pesky bats bomb Kakuna. Ash yells for Harden, which Kakuna does, increasing its defense. After the onslaught, Kakuna cannot be seen. Ash thinks of the worst, until above them, a Beedrill uses Fury Attack on the two Zubats. Realizing she's in trouble, Matori teleports out with her Abra. Ash and Brock are about to leave, but a Clefairy stops them. Ash is confused why Clefairy doesn't want to go with his friends. However, the fairy on one of the Pokeballs on Ash's belt. Getting caught. Ash is confused about what just happened, but he tries to leave. However, after walking on his own for a few steps, he realizes Brock wasn't following. Ash is confused, but Brock shows Ash a grey rock. Ash asks what it is, but Brock says it's a moonstone that can involve certain Pokemon, like your Clefairy. Ash asks where Brock got it, and the boy answers a Clefable gave it to him. Ash is confused why a Pokemon would just give something so precious away like that. Brock doesn't know either, as the two walk out. We cut outside the school, where Ash and Brock are walking. This is until the duo spot a random boy running on a treadmill, as other students question him. Ash and Brock yell at the kids, who all but the one on the treadmill flee. The boy introduces himself as Joe, and reveals that he was just studying with his friends. Brock isn't convinced the boys are Joe's friends, and so is Ash, who thinks they're bullies. Ash asks the boy why he's studying so hard to the point of exhaustion. The boy replies so he could enter the Kanto League. This surprises Ash, as in his beliefs, if you want to enter the league, you should travel and collect badges. Ash asks Joe who the strongest trainer in his class is. Joe pulls out a picture of a girl, however warns Ash that there's no chance he could beat her, as she's a trainer equivalent to one who has 2 badges. Actually, everyone in his class was. The newly formed trio walk into the school and find a computer. Brock asks Joe if he thinks he could beat him. Joe runs a simulation and tells Brock there's no chance a rock and ground type could beat a grass type. The two battle as Brock sends out Geodude while Joe sends out Weepinbell. Geodude with a single Mega Punch knocks out Weepinbell. This surprises Joe, but Giselle, who is watching the battle, berates Joe, saying experience trumps type advantage every day. Ash challenges Giselle to a battle. The two agree on a 2 versus 2, substitutions not allowed. Ash sends out Beedrill, while Giselle sends out Vaporeon. Vaporeon seems really nervous. Giselle calls out for a water gun, which Vaporeon does, unleashing a torrent of water. However, the attack misses. Ash tells Beedrill to dive bomb Vaporeon with a Fury attack. This lands, dealing major damage. Giselle commands Vaporeon to jump into the pool. The feline does as it's told, melting into the pool. In the pool, the evolution is able to start landing water guns. Ash tells Beedrill to use Poison Sting into the pool. Giselle snickers. However, upon seeing the grin on Ash's face, Giselle looks worried. And this is proven right when Vaporeon exits the pool, a purple blush aligning its face. Giselle calls for a blizzard, but the water type misses, allowing Beedrill to land a Twin Needle. Giselle sends out Sandshrew. Ash in turn sends out Charmander. Giselle asks Ash the intelligence of sending Charmander out when it has a type disadvantage. Ash replies saying, experience trumps type advantage every day. Both Pokemon seem nervous around the pool. Ash notices this, so starts the round off with a smokescreen. Giselle laughs, calling for a Swift. The stars hit, however Ash is the one who smiles, as Charmander, further away from the pool, unleashes a flurry of embers. Giselle tells Sandshrew to roll into a ball. Ash's smirk widens. Eventually, Sandshrew is pushed into the pool unconscious. Giselle wants to know how a trainer with 1 badge beat her. Brock tells her that trainers who travel will always have an advantage over those who don't. It's clear she doesn't understand her Pokemon that well. That final battle, Charmander versus Sandshrew, for example, both Pokemon were afraid of the pool, and Ash realised it, while Giselle didn't. The duo leave after telling Giselle this advice and enter a forest. But Giselle stops them with bags in hand, saying she's going to travel with them. Ash protests as we cut to black. Our newly formed trio make their way to Cerulean City. Ash is incredibly angry. Giselle asks Ash why the sign made him so angry. We flash back to a sign which reads, Gary was here, Ash is a loser. Ash's mood stays sour until he sees another sign, which reads, Nugget Ridge Challenge. Ash's mood swings, as now he's fired up. He tells his companions that he'd like to challenge the Nugget Bridge Challenge. With no reason to protest, Ash's companions allow it. However, when Ash goes to the bridge, all of the trainers are knocked out. Ash is confused until a trainer tackles him. Ash realizes that this was his childhood companion Green, and introduces her to his new companions. Green is excited to see how Red's doing. Giselle asks why Green is calling Ash Red. The raven-haired boy replies saying it's a long story. Green quickly challenges Ash to a 2-on-2 battle, an offer which the Pallet native accepts. Green sends out her first partner Ivysaur, while Ash, having some idea of type matchups, sends out his first partner Charmander. The honey-haired youth immediately calls for a Razorleaf. However, the raven-haired boy dodges with Smokescreen. Green tells her Grassy Lizard to keep it up. Giselle is confused how this girl defeated all the trainers on the Nugget Bridge, when suddenly the smokescreen clears. This shocks everyone, but the victor of the bridge, who says that by using Razorleaf, the wind would push the smoke away. This makes the raven-haired boy nervous, until Charmander gives him a sign. Green might be strong, but he'll work with his Pokemon to be stronger. This leads to the boy calling for an Ember, which lands. This shocks Green, as most trainers don't even land a hit on her. However, rather than be distraught, this just makes the girl far more excited. She orders for a Vine Whip, which Ivysaur is ready to execute, but Green tells the dinosaur to pull Charmander, then run into it with a takedown. As Charmander gets pulled, Ash calls for a Scratch, hoping to use the same pull force which Ivysaur is using to strengthen his Scratch. The two Pokemon collide. An intense gust of wind passes both Pokemon, and despite what the type matchup would say, Ivysaur is the one that stays standing. The Pallet native sends out Clefairy, as Green recalls her Ivysaur. Ash questions the girl on this. Here she says that she wants her other Pokemon to get some experience on a more competent trainer. The honey-haired youth sends out Mankey, who seems to be angry that this pink fluff ball is staring it down, so charges. Ash tells Clefairy to dodge or do anything. The fairy does as it's told, actually being able to outpace Mankey. After a while, the Mount Moon native taunts Mankey, which makes the Pokemon go even faster and stronger with rage. Ash calls for a double slap, but rather than do it on Mankey, it does it on the raven-haired youth. Ash is annoyed, and this gets worse when Mankey kicks him with a mega kick. Ash screams in pain. Green scolds Mankey, telling him to apologise to Ash. Mankey does this, then looks at Clefairy, who's mocking him more. Mankey lunges full force at the pink puffball. Clefairy thought he could escape. However, this is proven wrong when he gets tackled by the pig monkey into the lake. The two trainers look down as their Pokemon are drifting down the stream. Green lands from the bridge onto some land. Right before she lands, she sends out Ivysaur to make sure she's safe by holding her with some vines. Ash tries to do this, but misses the part of having a Pokemon help him, so lands on his head. Green yells at Red, saying if he keeps this up, he won't be able to make it to the Pokemon League finals with her. Here the two promise the next time they meet, they'll have a 3-on-3 battle. Ash is surprised that the girl thinks so highly of him, as the two walk down, looking for their Pokemon. After a while, they notice something. The water seems to be becoming more purple. The raven-haired youth recognises this as something similar from his battle against Giselle. However, it seems quite distant, as the water is far more gloopy. The two go to the originator of the sludge, which ends up being a wild muck. The honey-haired youth hastily sends out her Growlithe. The raven-haired boy follows in suit, sending out his Beedrill. The muck immediately goes for the sludge on Beedrill. Beedrill, resisting the attack, doesn't take much damage. Ash orders it for a Fury attack, which Beedrill does. The muck seemingly takes no damage from the attack. Ash is getting frustrated. Green has her loyal companion use Flamethrower. However, the muck contorts around the attack, leading it to do nothing. The raven-haired youth recalls his Beedrill before sending out Pidgey. Quickly he calls for his bird to use Quick Attack. This doesn't faze the power of sludge. He unleashes some of its most potent sludge on the bird. This direct hit is enough to knock the little bird out. Ash recalls Pidgey and sends out his Beedrill. Green isn't having any luck landing hits. However, rather than getting angry like Ash did, the girl only gets more and more excited. Beedrill is used as a defensive barrier against the sludge attacks, due to resisting them. Meanwhile, Growlithe goes in for hits. That is until Ash sees Clefairy and Green's Mankey. Ash tells Beedrill to use String Shot on the duo to pull them here. This makes Green laugh, as Red is using her tactics to become stronger, as by using a pull technique with String Shot, the boy is able to get both of the Pokemon safe. However, as the boy does this, a crucial B-shaped hole is left in the Fire Puppy's defense, and so he takes a bombardment of sludge attacks, which knocks the Pokemon out. Ash recalls Clefairy, and the honey-haired youth recalls her Mankey and Growlithe. Green is thinking about what she should do next, when a peculiar idea comes to her head. She'd rather not do it, but it seems like her hand has been forced, as she throws a Pokeball at the muck. This catches the Pokemon. Ash and Green try to head back, but they are stopped by Giselle, Brooke, and some guy the two have never met. The guy introduces himself as Bill, and says he was investigating the sludge in the water for a while now, but he got stuck to a tree, which these lovely folks helped me out of. Ash and Green tell the man the situation is under control. The honey-haired youth shows the man a Pokeball. Bill is shocked, but because these guys did his job of dealing with the muck, and more by relocating it, he gives the group 3 tickets to the SSN. However, warns the girl that this muck was most likely released by a trainer, and won't be trusting of humans. The researcher then apologises for only having 3 tickets to the SSN. Ash isn't that interested, but Giselle is telling both of the Pallet Town youths that the SSN is a luxury cruise liner. Ash and Green don't really care about that, but Ash just accepts it to not drag the conversation out. The quartet go to the Pokemon Center, where they hand their Pokemon to Nurse Joy. The area is filled with Pokemon, but Ash and Green tell the nurse that they've stopped the muck problem, so there shouldn't be many more problems for her. Ash, realising there will be a long wait, tries to go to the gym. The other 3 follow him. However, Giselle trips on the bunch of Pokemon, leading to a Pokeball rolling out of her bag. A Psyduck pecks the Pokeball. Giselle screams as she accidentally catches the little yellow duck. The quartet make their way to the gym, as Green needs her Pokemon to be healed. Ash asks Green who's going to go first. Green chuckles, saying she's already got the badge. This leaves the raven-haired youth shocked as he enters the gym. The gym is a massive pool with a few small platforms. As Ash goes to the middle of the field, he sees 3 girls. The girls apologise, saying that Ash won't be able to have a battle, as they only have 1 week seal left. That is until they see Green. They ask Ash if he helped in the muck situation. Ash honestly replies yes. The trio hand him the badge, saying that they gave the city a service, so they're willing to give him the badge. Ash accepts this, feeling a bit down. With the second badge, he's about to walk out, when an orange-haired girl meets him. She yells at her sisters to stop handing out 3 badges. The trio reply that it's for something else, but the fiery girl from Cerulean won't accept it, and challenges Ash to a battle. Feeling happy that he gets a battle, Ash accepts with joy. Ash starts off with his injured Beedrill, as Misty sends out her Poliwag. Immediately, Misty takes the first move, telling her Tadpole to use a double slap. Ash tells his Beedrill to counter with a Twin Needle. The 2 attacks collide, but the bug easily overpowers the little water creature, knocking it out. Misty, annoyed, sends out her Staryu. She calls for a water gun. However, the injured bug dodges, before the raven-haired boy orders a string shot. This encases Staryu in a cage of silk. Ash calls for a Twin Needle, which ends the match. Misty begrudgingly allows Ash to leave. Ash and company go to the Pokemon Center, where they get their newly healed Pokemon back, as Green separates from the group to go on her own adventure. We cut to midday as our trio decide to take a break. Brock tells Giselle that now might be a good time to work on her Pokemon. They go to the riverbank, so Giselle can send out her water-type Pokemon. Giselle sends out her team of Sandshrew and Psyduck. Brock asks where Vaporeon is. Giselle, embarrassed, admits that she never owned it, but rather is borrowing it from the school. Brock tells the girl it's fine, as when they start, it's better to have less Pokemon than more. Ash sees this as boring, so decides to explore, where he starts to hear some fighting. Ash rushes to the originator of the noise, as he sees a tent which says, AJ's Pokemon Gym, 99 wins, 0 losses. And in a small font it says, not associated with the Pokemon League. The raven-haired youth enters the battlefield, where the green-haired youth is waiting for him. Ash asks the boy who he is. The boy asks Ash if he can read, as he introduces himself as AJ, the owner of this tent. Ash asks the boy how many badges he's got. AJ tells the boy that he has none, because he's going for 100 wins without a single loss before he starts collecting badges. Ash laughs at this, showing his case of 2 badges to AJ. AJ challenges Ash to 3 one-on-one battles, with the winner being decided based on who has the most total wins. Ash accepts this offer. The two go on either ends of the battlefield as the match begins. Ash immediately sends out Pidgey, while AJ in turn sends out his Nidoran. AJ orders his little rabbit to use Poison Sting. The poisonous barbs deal major damage to Pidgey. Ash tells his Skyborn to fly up and use Gust. The bird does as it's told, flapping its wings, unleashing a veil of air. This hurts Nidoran. AJ tells Nidoran to use another Poison Sting. The Pokemon does as it's told, sending the barbs into the air. Ash calls for a Gust, which sends the Poison Sting back at Nidoran. AJ is impressed, as while Ash might be way too egotistical for his skill level, he is still a pretty decent trainer. AJ orders his Nidoran to use a double kick on the fence. Ash is confused until Nidoran starts ascending rapidly. Ash orders a quick attack, which Ash's first capture executes with haste. AJ tells his Nidoran to counter with Horn Attack. The 2 attacks collide. Both Pokemon fall out the air, but when they hit the ground, Nidoran is the one that stays standing. The first round goes to AJ. The raven-haired boy from Pallet gets annoyed, as he sends out his Beedrill. AJ recalls his Nidoran before sending out his Butterfree. Both trainers issue a command of String Shot, which their bugs do. This leads to a tie in power. Ash commands a Poison Sting to clip Butterfree's wings. However, the butterfly counters with Psybeam. This destroys all the Poison Stings. Ash commands Beedrill to go up close and attack with a Fury Attack. This hits Butterfree's wings, sending the Pokemon to the floor. Ash tells Beedrill to finish it with another Fury Attack, but Butterfree counters with Gust. This pushes the bee back. Ash gets an idea to order Beedrill to dive bomb Butterfree while spinning. The floored bug tries to use a Gust, but due to Beedrill spinning, the attack goes through, landing a finishing Fury Attack. Ash wins the second round, tying up the battle. AJ, with far more respect for Ash, sends out his ace Machop. Ash is about to send out his Charmander, but Clefairy comes out instead. AJ tells Machop to go in for a Mega Punch. Machop goes in for one, but Clefairy is able to dodge. This goes on for a while, with Machop trying to attack Clefairy, but the pink pixie being able to dodge. Clefairy taunts Machop as he fails time after time. This angers the Pokemon to the point of evolution. Machoke comes in. Clefairy tries to jump over him, but due to how much bigger Machoke is, fails. The angry fighting lizard punches Clefairy with a Mega Punch. This knocks Clefairy out, making AJ the winner of this battle. Ash and AJ shake hands, with AJ promising to battle Ash in the league once he gets the badges. Ash walks back to the group, where he hears Brock and Giselle cheering. Ash asks the group what happened, but Brock tells Ash that if he wants to know, him and Giselle have to battle. Ash, always eager for a battle, accepts, as he sends out all his Pokemon to watch. However, Clefairy seems quite distant. Brock asks Ash what happened to Clefairy. The boy from Pallet replies he lost against a trainer once his Machop evolved. Brock gets the Moonstone out of his bag before offering it to Clefairy, telling the fairy if he touches the stone, it will be able to become strong, like Machoke. Clefairy slaps the Moonstone out of the ex-gym leader's hands. Tangela tries to talk to the Pokemon, but their chemistry is completely different. This makes Brock realise that the Clefairy Ash caught wasn't the same one they saved from Team Rocket. Rather, it was a different one, which was different to the rest of its group. Ash is shocked to learn this and realizes he's going to support Clefairy in its dreams to become the world's strongest Clefairy. Giselle comes and tells Ash that she's ready for the battle. Immediately she sends out Psyduck. This confuses Ash, so he sends out Beedrill, who's still tired from earlier. Ash calls for a Twin Needle from Beedrill. This attack lands on Psyduck's head. Giselle laughs as Psyduck's eyes glow blue. A psychic aura envelops Beedrill. Confusion, Giselle calls coldly, as Beedrill gets sent flying by Psyduck. String shot, Ash yells. The bug unleashes a line of string. This connects to Psyduck, who goes flying with Beedrill. Psyduck falls into the water and starts struggling. Giselle recalls Psyduck with a sigh, and Ash does the same, as Beedrill needs some rest. Giselle sends out her Sandshrew, so Ash in turn sends out his Charmander. Ash tells Giselle that last time Charmander beat Sandshrew, so what makes this different? Giselle giggles, telling Ash that things will be different now. She's certain of it. Ash orders Charmander to unleash a flurry of embers at Sandshrew, but Giselle orders a swift counter. The attacks collide, causing some sand to pick up. When the sand subsides, Sandshrew goes missing? Ash is confused until the ground underneath Charmander breaks. Sandshrew attacks Charmander with Dig. Before Ash can react, Sandshrew starts digging again. Ash quickly calls for the smokescreen, which Charmander does, but Sandshrew is able to land another dig on Charmander. Ash asks Giselle how Sandshrew was able to hit Charmander through the smokescreen. The girl replies that Sandshrew detects vibration, as underground you can't see anything above you. Ash gets an idea, as he tells his fire lizard to rush next to the lake. The fire lizard is weary, but trusting his trainer, he listens and faces his fear and stands near the body of water. Giselle tells Sandshrew to attack Charmander, but rather resurfaces at the top of the lake, knocked out. Giselle asks Ash how he did that, and Ash says that by staying near the lake, Sandshrew would have a high chance of getting pushed in or digging into the lake. Giselle is shocked as the mystery of Ash Ketchum still escapes her. The trio make their way into the Million City, where Ash is eager to have a proper battle against the gym leader. Brock seems a bit hesitant, but as Ash and Giselle walk off without him, so he's forced to keep up. The group go into the gym, where they see a towering man waiting for them. The man looks at the raven-haired boy before chuckling, asking if he really thinks he can beat him. The passionate boy from Pallet tells the man that he will beat him. However, the leader ignores this, asking what Brocco is doing here. Brock just grunts. Ash challenges Surge to a battle, which the man accepts. Surge sends out Raichu, while Ash sends out his Charmander. Immediately, Ash calls for a smokescreen, which Charmander does. Surge just laughs as he calls up for a body slam and tells Raichu to aim for Charmander's tail flame. Raichu jumps into the air before flattening Charmander. This knocks the fire lizard out. Ash is shocked as he picks Charmander up. He rushes to the Pokemon Center. Nursejoy takes one look at Charmander before getting worried. She rushes Charmander into an emergency room. Ash feels like a failure. How did he lose so badly? Giselle and Brock are able to catch up to Ash. Ash stays silent. After what feels like an eternity, Nursejoy comes out of the room, saying that Ash can come into the room. However, when he does, he sees Charmander in a bed with a bunch of monitors on him. Giselle looks worried, but Brock tells Ash that there was no chance he could beat Surge. Ash asks what Brock means. He thought every trainer had a weakness. Brock replies, every trainer does have a weakness, but you simply don't have enough power to beat Surge. Surge trained me. I understand his power. You don't. Ash is shocked as Brock and Giselle leave. The raven-haired boy sits on the floor, his own thoughts consuming him, until, from his belt, Beedrill comes out. The bug sends out all of Ash's other Pokemon, before going to Charmander. Ash watches as the bug talks to the fire lizard. Ash's first partner gets out of his bed. He stands up. Beedrill goes up to Ash, saying things. While the raven-haired boy doesn't understand Beedrill's language, he can understand his spirit. So, he recalls all his Pokemon before going outside. He starts doing some training, but Charmander can't keep up. It's way too exhausted for that. Ash continues to no results until Brock comes up to the boy. He decides to help Ash train, as we jump to Giselle. She's waiting outside of the Vermilion Gym, waiting for her two companions. Until after a while, Ash and Brock walk up looking exhausted. Giselle asks Ash what he was doing, but Ash tells the girl not to worry, she'll see in the match. The trio enter the gym. The group meets Surge, who asks Ash if he really thinks he can win this rematch. Ash says he doesn't think he can. He knows he can. Surge tells the spunky kid to bring it on. Ash sends out Charmander, as Surge sends out Raichu. Surge wonders how much better Charmander could be in such a short amount of time. Ash immediately calls for the smoke screen, which Charmander does. Surge tells Raichu to aim for the tail flame with a body slam. Raichu looks for the tail flame but can't see it and lands on its face. The smoke clears and Charmander is in front of the grown electric rodent. Surge is confused how Charmander dodged the attack, but doesn't pay much mind to it. When Raichu stands up, Charmander is on the other side of the battleground. The fire lizard uses a smokescreen, as Raichu uses a mega punch, aiming for the tail flame. However, like before, Raichu can't see the tail flame and misses. The fire lizard attacks Raichu with an ember. This doesn't deal much damage, but it ticks Raichu off. Ash's first partner uses another mega kick, aiming for the tail flame, but like always, he can't see and trips, and Charmander doesn't appear. However, Surge realizes something. Raichu didn't trip on nothing. He tripped on a hole. Brock taught the kid how to use Dig. How cute. Surge tells Ash he knows his secret, so the boy is going to lose this match. But Ash asks the man if he knows why he didn't use Dig from the beginning to attack Raichu. Surge, confused, didn't know why, so asks Ash. The boy from Pallet replies, because Surge knows the timing of Dig from training with Brock, he knew he had to wear Raichu out so that the timing would be slightly off. Surge takes this deal, telling Raichu to feel the vibrations and knock Charmander out with a body slam as soon as it resurfaces. Raichu feels it and goes in for a body slam, a second too early, so that Charmander resurfaces with a critical hit Dig being dealt to Raichu. This knocks the electric mouse out. Surge laughs. Ash proved himself and won the match by training. He hands the boy the Thunder Badge. Ash won. He beat Surge, and now Charmander was stronger than ever.
What if Ash started with Charmander? Will return.